You'll get to play, and no matter how you do, you'll sit out the second period.
Today he was a goalie from another planet. Name top 3 favorite dishes of yours.
Wow, the level of treatment here is just so much higher than in other clubs.
I need a break. I can't keep going like this.
They really invested in the team.
Not even care about what the coach says. Just focus on myself.
That the club doesn't pay for hotels.
I'm working hard, I'm banging my head against the wall, but nothing's breaking through.
But here the flights are much longer, so you often don't get back till 2 or 3 a.m.
And that's why I haven't given interviews in a few years.
Just give me more time because I'm tired. I'm regressing. Whose shots are the hardest to stop? McKinnon, Kucherov, or McDavid? Nichushkin is getting spoiled. Who does he think he is to say something like that?
I really wanted to play. That hunger to play was really building up.
Cause you know that I'ma make it look easy. Ain't no stopping me now, no.
By the way, the guys from your team told me that when you're on road trips, Evgeny books the biggest room, like a suite, because he sets up those tables. And he gives everyone massages while also handing out chocolates. Everyone's sitting there eating chocolate and enjoying themselves.
We actually started this thing with you. You know, tea time thing. I told you before, right? I've always had the last to show up, and he gives me a massage, sets up the tables. We sit here watching TV, drinking tea, and chatting. Over the time, the other guys started bringing more and more Russian sweets. So when we stop by the store, especially long trips, it's like he brings a whole bag with him because now the guys are really getting into it too.
They love Russian candy.
Yeah, they love it.
They enjoy it.
They love it. You know, they really like halva.
Seriously?
Halva, chocolate glazed
like those
halva.
bars?
Yeah, chocolate glazed halva.
And that just missed 2-on-1 the other way. Beniers and Eberle. Rantanen is back. Eberle, the trailer to Alexiak. Across Eberle. With the right pass by Georgiev. And back the other way. Off-man rush Comfort. Nice shot. Blocker.
You know, there's this thing in the NHL where if a player has an important game or just wants to have some fun, they put a pot of money on the game. And that money goes towards something for the team. You know about that?
Yeah, of course.
So here's the question. When you played against the Rangers and beat them in the shootout, Makar said, I don't know what grudges he holds against his former club, but today he was a goalie from another planet. Do you put your own pod when you play against the Rangers?
Yeah, I did the first season for the first game at MSG and the first home game this season. Not anymore, I think. I don't think I'll do it for 10 years in a row against my former club. But at that time, yeah, we did.
Can Lafreniere keep the Rangers alive? On Georgiev to the forehand. Save made by Georgiev, and he celebrates a win against his old team here at the Garden.
As for any grudges, I wouldn't say there was a real grudge. But yeah, for every game, you try to somehow find your personal motivation. And with the Rangers, I didn't have to look far, you know? I wanted to show that I was a good goalie, better than they thought. The game went well. It was nice to win there.
We're in the kitchen.
Yeah, kitchen.
So what do you eat?
For the last 8 years, my fridge has always been empty. Basically, ever since I moved to America at 18, I spent all my free time eating out at restaurants, you know? Just to get out of the house, have a walk. You know? I really don't like staying at home. Also, I've always rented an apartment here. And the rental apartments are different. Like in Moscow, for example, you can rent in a really amazing apartment. Here, it's a bit different. Big companies build the entire buildings with rental apartments only. In Moscow, an apartment like that would cost around $7,000 or $8,000, but here, even the best one might cost like $4,000.
Low, right?
They're small, the rooms are small, and the ceilings are low, you know? You can't even do much with the decor here and make it nice. But here I picked out some really nice furniture. I actually enjoy being here. There's a lot of space, and I can even step outside. But for that, I lived in an apartment, and you know, cooking there was a hassle. In my last apartment, the kitchen fan didn't even work properly. So when we did cook, we had to open the balcony and the other hallway because, you know, people are walking by, and the fan just didn't work. Now, with the kid, we still try to get out for lunch, but we always have dinner at home. Sometimes we order in, sometimes we decide to cook.
Name top 3 favorite dishes of yours and top 3 favorite dishes your wife cooks for you.
Well, for me, if I had to pick my top 3, I love sushi a lot. I don't know, steaks in America are really good.
Sushi and steaks?
I have to give them credit for that. But it's sushi in Texas, especially in Dallas, oh man.
Sushi, steaks, and what's the third one?
The Italian pasta.
Pasta. What does your wife cook?
My wife's signature dish is definitely teriyaki salmon. I say that, then of course, before game, she makes me spaghetti or pasta, like those little bow tie ones. I really love those, you know. She makes chicken breast, organic, of course. Cuts it thin and cooks it in the egg. I always ask her to fry the chicken a little bit in the egg, and then she adds some balsamic sauce.
Sounds tasty.
It's just amazing.
I'm going hard on my back to the wall. I was like, damn, just pumping in fuck shit, no bitch. I was rich nigga in prison.
Colorado is quite a serious organization with a long history and a lot of respect. You could say the same about the Rangers, part of the original 6 with a rich history. Now that you've been in both teams, are there any major differences you could point out? And if so, what are they?
Well, you know, when I first got to the Rangers, I remember a lot of players who had played around the league and said, wow, the level of treatment here is just so much higher than in other clubs. And you don't really understand that because for you, your whole life, wow, NHL, this is the pinnacle. And you expect everything to be perfect at the top. And it really was. The way they treated you in terms of food, travel, everything, they were great. When I came here to Colorado, everything is also great, but you start to notice small differences during the season, things you might not have noticed otherwise. Like, for example, in the Rangers, it was normal to have food at the arena before every game, even early games. But here, at least last season, we'd get fed on non-game days, but on game days, there wasn't any food. Like, there was breakfast, but no lunch, which is strange. I mean, why not? And all the guys here in the area, well, not all, but there was a group that would always go to the same restaurant nearby and eat the same food. And we had our own table, you know, ordering the same things. Others would just eat at home. I remember one of the first early games we had at home, and I thought, well, we always have breakfast. I'll come and eat. In the Rangers, you'd always come in and there'd be anything you want, waffles, omelets, whatever. But here I came in and there was nobody, there was nothing, nobody even wrote about it. I ended up eating some jalapeno burrito that the service guys had. But luckily, I wasn't supposed to play, so it didn't really affect me. But there were little oversights like that. This season, though, it's gotten a lot better. You know, they had won the Cup the year before, so naturally the owners made a lot of money and they really invested in the team. I mean, we got a renovation for the main arena and the locker room, and they did a great job with the lounge at the practice arena also. So now, this season, I'd say the level has really improved overall, especially in all the major areas. But I've heard from guys out in Anaheim, and they've said that things are bad there. And I've heard things about Arizona, that the club doesn't pay for hotels, so they have to stay in cheaper ones, and that the owners don't cover the expenses.
And what about hockey itself, like in terms of the training approach or the system of play, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. It's more about the culture, probably. And let's say McKinnon really helps in terms of shaping the training process. I think he acts like an assistant coach, actually, and they consult with him. You know, we don't have as many practices compared to other teams, partly because, well, he often says 5 guys don't want to go on the ice. They want to work in the gym or rest their bodies. So they'll listen and say, well, today's ice training's optional. Plus, the travel here is very different. On the East Coast, especially in the Central Division, you've got New York's 3 teams in Philadelphia. They're also close, so you're always home by midnight. But here the flights are much longer, so you often don't get back till 2 or 3 a.m. It's harder to get in quality practice after that. So I'd say that there are more optional ice sessions, and then the guys spend a lot more time in the gym. And so these differences, I'd say, they don't come from the organization, but more from the team's current situation. And our coach is great too, giving the players everything they need. And we just have to be ready for the game.
Man, honestly, I got really lucky with that house purchase because we bought it just at the right time when there was a slight dip in prices. And there aren't many houses like this one, you know? Especially in this area, the prices for housing, it's pretty great deal that we got. You know, I installed in speakers in the corners up there and here as well. In fact, I put speakers all over the house in common areas so I can just play music on my phone. When the weather's nice, like you see now, I'll come up here, do some stretching, or set up something here, play a little meditation session, just lie down and sunbathe, relax a bit. By the way, my sister painted this, though she was in a rush and didn't have time to finish it. Maybe I'll finish it myself, or at least I give it a try.
Do you know how to paint?
Nah, of course not. Why would I? But seriously, sometimes I can actually turn out okay. But yeah, you never know. So this year, for example, there was a situation where I just had to tell the guys, look, I need a break. I can't keep going like this because, you know, even though I had a good season and things were going well, I was just hanging by a thread. And where you're not getting enough sleep, there's not a lot to be happy about. You're scoring goals, you bought a house, things are great, but you wake up feeling constantly exhausted, just endlessly tired. You don't feel like doing anything. You can't even enjoy the good things. It's like this constant apathy, and that's why I haven't given interviews in a few years. It's not normal, of course. I've distanced myself from everyone because at the time I didn't understand it back then, but now I do. It all comes down to like my mental health. It's just easier not to talk to anyone than try to force something out.
When you don't score for 20 games, you start shaking. By 30 games, it gets even worse. By 91, I feel like even if someone passed you the puck right in front of an empty net, you wouldn't score just because your hands are probably trembling so much. How do you deal with that?
Well, as I said before, it was because of that saboteur mindset. Now, for example, you know, in Dallas, I didn't even have the goals of scoring anymore. It was like, whatever. I just tried a bit, maybe for like the first 20 games and nothing happened. After that, I was like, that was just like trade me. Or, I was the last to arrive at the stadium. I hurt myself a lot and took a long time recovering from that. You know what I'm saying? It would have been easier for me to get angry, push back, and not even care about what the coach says. Just focus on myself. If I had done that, the situation would have been like so bad. Also, it would have impacted my income, you know. I lost a lot of money too. After that, I had to prove myself again. When I came to Colorado, it was basically just part of the rotation. Honestly, I was lucky because a guy had a hip surgery and I was out, so I wasn't supposed to be playing. But you know, God gave me a second chance and I had to make the most of it.
Turnover, bumped out in front, shot, save, rebound, cleared it on the crease. Oh my goodness, was that a paddle save by Georgiev? This could be an icing call on the Avalanche, and it will be.
So, everyone says that McKinnon is a mega professional. Is that true? Is he really that meticulous about his approach, about how he treats his body? I heard that he takes 40 supplements, not like pills or steroids or anything, but actual supplements. And he has his own psychologist, he has his own chef, and so on.
Yeah, he's kind of like, like he's playing coach. I can't imagine what he'll be like when he's 40, you know? But everyone listens to him when it comes to diet, nutrition, all of that. And this year, they finally started feeding us lunch on game days. And, you know, the usual pasta, most guys will eat regular spaghetti with sauce and chicken, but now we've got pasta that I've never even heard of. some kind of cassava pasta, and I don't even know what that is.
It's gluten-free like he prefers, right?
Well, there's gluten-free, and then there's chickpea pasta.
Yeah.
Made from peas or something like that.
Yep.
And it's some kind of pasta made from peas. I've never heard of it before, and I understand that it's coming from McKinnon because he's really particular about food. He knows a lot about nutrition and supplements, and so things are interesting here because of that.
Let's imagine the following scenario. It's the day before a game, and either you or another player just walks into a locker room with a bag of chips and sits down next to McKinnon. What happens then?
I don't think that would go over very well. They definitely make it clear that you're not where you should be, you know? It's hard to imagine that happening. I think most of the guys in our team are more into protein shakes. They love them.
I've heard he can literally take something from someone and say, no, you don't need this, almost in a commanding tone. Not just like, hey man, just don't do that.
I heard stories like that before I came here, like someone sprinkling a bit of cheese on their pasta on game day, and he was like, hey, what are you doing? But honestly, I don't know. Maybe after they won the cup, he's calmed down a bit. I think he sometimes lets people know when something's not okay, but it's more in a joking tone now, rather than him ordering people around. No one's giving orders, nothing like that. There's a lot of mutual respect here, and that's really good.
In 2016, you gave a big interview to a Russian journalist, and the main theme, the common thread running through it, was your frustration about not being given enough ice time. You said, I'm working hard, I'm banging my head against the wall, but nothing's breaking through. Give me more time, even if it's with guys who aren't Benn or Seguin. I mean, less skilled players, just give me more time because I'm tired, I'm regressing. That was the main idea, the main message there. I really respect that because I understand that if we don't fight for our rights, then no one's gonna fight for us.
Yeah.
But people who read and watched that interview said things like, Nichushkin is getting spoiled. Who does he think he is to say something like that? He's young. Who does he think he's challenging? And so on. What were you thinking at that moment? Did you regret it? And what happened after the interview?
I don't know. With time, you realize, our brains are wired this way. Healthy minds tend to blur out the bad moments because if we kept all of them, then we'll probably go insane. The only good remains. Now, I actually think that Lindy Ruff was an amazing coach. I don't remember him not having given me playing time or anything like that. But if I were to dig deep, there were definitely moments where I definitely didn't understand him. Even now, there's still some things I still don't get. For example, there's a situation after I had that hip surgery, and there were like 5 or 8 games left in the season. My one goal was to score at least 1 goal for the season, but for some reason they put me in. Even though the team was definitely not going to make the playoffs, our chances were 0. Pretty much. It was quite pointless, and then they sent me on a conditioning stint to the farm team. Why? I was telling them, guys, let me just score a goal. Then I played a couple of games, and then with like 3 games left, games didn't matter at all. He says to me, you get 1 more game to skate. I've been sitting out the entire season before that. Remember when I told you that I was sitting and watching hockey? And that was it? I really wanted to play. That hunger to play was really building up. Then the next season, my 3rd season with him, they barely put me on the ice with Benn or Seguin. But the thing is, it all became clear in time. Let's look at the players who were playing at the time in the team. Not even with him, but for example, let's take Dallas under Montgomery. I don't want to say anything bad about the guys, but where are they now? Half of them aren't even in HL anymore. It was obvious that I had more potential and I could play better. There were moments when, in first period, things were really going well for me. But when you're playing on the 3rd or 4th line, especially in a tough game, your chance to score is usually the first period, pretty much. In the first period, the coach still gives you some ice time. But after that, he focuses more on results and mostly sends out the guys from like the first line. And, more effective I'm hot. There were times in Dallas when we were literally rough, where I took these 3 shots the first period, and the whole team only had 5 shots in total. Then in the third period, he gave me some time again. Of course, it's about fairness, right? But honestly, fairness as a concept doesn't really exist, or rather exists, but everyone has their own version of it. At that time, I felt like I was being treated unfairly. For example, here in Colorado, I personally resonate better with the coach. He sees us playing well at the moment and gives those players more time. He just sees it. He's more objective in this regard. And that's why no one here complains, because they know that they're not playing well. They'll get less time or move to another time. It's clear and straightforward. But over there, it didn't matter how you played. It was like no one was watching the game. It was predetermined. In the first period, you'll get to play, and no matter how you do, you'll sit out the second period. Maybe the third, you'll get some time again. If he asked whether that interview needed to happen or not, I remember that the interview was completely accidental, super emotional. I think it was San Jose. I believe that after the game, and this guy sat down with me, I didn't realize he was recording, and that would be published. So it was just one of those moments I reported this. So I was basically pouring out my soul to rush and speak in person. I was just venting.
They didn't check with you about it?
I had it built up inside. Not that they didn't check with me, He just sat down, and I was like, caught up with my own thoughts. Maybe some kind of state, full of anger, I just sat down, I didn't realize. He was probably sitting there with the recorder like this, but at that moment, I didn't even register that he was going to. It just turned out into a conversation. He was smart, though. He did his job well, got me talking a bit, asked the right question, and in the end, I ended up saying way too much. Can you imagine just having to be there for Lindy and the young guy saying all that?
Did he respond at all?
Of course he didn't respond. He was probably smarter, He understood it all, processed it. But at the same time, after that interview, I went back to Russia and...
Did the guys like Benn and Seguin say anything to you?
No, nobody said anything. Actually, I've always had a really good relationship with Seguin and Benn from my first year. They weren't super close with the young guys, They were more like, we're superstars. Whereas you have guys like Nate McKinnon and Mika Radinen here are just so down to earth and the way they behave. But when it comes to Benn and Seguin, we're more like, superstar status. Still, especially with Seguin, we get along very well. We're just in a really good relationship.
As a goalie, whose shots are the hardest to stop? McKinnon, Kucherov, or McDavid?
That's a good question. I think Kucherov and McDavid don't shoot as often. And with McKinnon, well, I face him more in practice. I'd say it's very interesting playing against him in practice because his shot is really good. In our team, he's definitely in the top 2. Plus, it's interesting because, my style is such that I often stay on my feet for high shots. This has been the case since I was a kid because I was always a very small goalie. I was short. And I understood that for me to catch high shots, it was easier to stay upright. And it also conserved energy. I often did 2 ice sessions a day, sometimes 3 hours on the ice. And naturally, you're not going to drop into the butterfly position when it's not necessary. You try to simplify things as much as possible. This approach carried over into my professional hockey career. When I joined the team, I remember the first 2 months. McKinnon couldn't score on me from the top of the crease because he kept shooting high and I was staying up, catching everything. He'd get so frustrated. I remember him going to our goalie coach like, why isn't he dropping? And then he started mixing it up a bit, sometimes faking a shot. And his shots are really good. Now it's more interesting because it's like little games, where I'm thinking, will I drop into the butterfly or not? Will he fake or not? These little mind games, they're always fun.
It's over! They did it! They did it! The job is done! The Colorado Avalanche are Stanley Cup champions! And they will lift Lord Stanley a mile high!
You've talked a lot about your journey to winning the Cup. But let's talk about what happened after the Cup. You guys gained fame, got new contracts, and finally closed your personal chapters, paying back, in a way, those who doubted you. Everyone had their own personal debts to settle. How did your life change after winning the cup? What specifically changed and in what way?
First of all, when the final buzzer went off, man, I was the last one to join the pile. Even though I was on the ice, I just stopped there, I raised my stick, I took off my helmet. For one, my foot was already starting to hurt a bit. And secondly, I was already exhausted in that moment. But the biggest thing, like Kobe Bryant used to say, the dream isn't the achievement of the goal, but the journey toward it. I really felt that in that moment. I was even a bit sad over it, like, that's it. The games are over, and we finally won. Because the journey was the happiest moment of my life. Just like all the games starting during the first round. It was just some kind of like euphoria, some real euphoria. Of course, there was a lot of joy, but at some point, like, during especially the first week, I felt a bit of emptiness, of course. I had surgery, I had crutches, There was even this feeling, realizing I had to go through rehab. Everyone, the guys were all celebrating, yeah. I wasn't allowed to bring a cup to Russia. I asked to take it to Dubai. They didn't allow it, I wanted to take it to Turkey or Dubai so that people from Russia could fly there directly. And by the way, my great-grandmother passed away like 6 months after that. She was 99 or 98, I think 98 years old. She was very sharp-minded until the very last day of her life. And I really wanted to bring it to her. I really wanted to bring it to my grandfather and everyone. Of course, even though I understand the situation with my head, there's still a bit of resentment, towards the NHL for how they handled it. But, I think I never really had a proper day with the cup, to be honest. It still feels like it's pending. I'm waiting for the moment when they might allow it. Maybe I'll get a chance to bring it.
So it's like
they gave it to me for like an evening, but it didn't count as an official day with the cup. I mean, what's the point of just me hanging out with it in America? I partied it with a couple of times with the team. I mean, it's awesome, I wanted to bring it to your grandma, grandpa, your relatives in your hometown in Chelyabinsk for people to take pictures with it. That's cool. But just to take it somewhere random, like, who really needs it? Honestly, that's what I said. Nah, I'm not gonna throw away some big party. They gave it to me for 4 hours, and I just asked to take it to a restaurant, place it there. Friends and some acquaintances, people from the restaurant, we had a little bit of fun with it, and that's it. But, honestly, winning the cup really changed me psychologically. Yeah, you still have bad days or whatever. But of course, in these moments, when you're thinking, hey, well, at least I already won the cup, it makes things a little easier. 100% a little bit easier. Because for me, even before that, I feel like the biggest chance I had, well, were quite slim. Well, when you talk about the World Championship in Sochi, right? We lost that one. We lost the Senior Olympics. At track there, we lost the finals, All that happened at the start of my career. Some of the guys like Kucherov, they won in the Junior Championship. Some even won the World Championship later, right? I think that's really important. To win something early in your career, it really fuels you. Like, when we're playing against Tampa, at certain moments, I definitely had fears. What if we don't win? What if we get all the way to the end and most of the heartbreaking thing to finish in second place? Second place is the worst. If I also had second, third places, just, all throughout my career. But you see, I pushed through, thank God. Of course, there are moments now. I remember Sasha just once said, I told him, right? So Sasha once said something to me while we were sitting at the airport. It was him and Arlo were laughing, having fun. And at the point he goes, well, at least we have one cup, right?
Yeah.
And for them, it's right after a championship year. And I'm sitting there thinking, nah, man, I don't have one. So I had to win it, yeah. Yeah.
Valeri, in the movie Legend 43, which we talked about, there's one important change that should have been made. It should have been renamed to Legend 13 because you changed your number and that worked out for you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, by the way, I already mentioned it was Joe Sakic who attended
he almost made you do it. Right?
Not exactly forced. I just suggested it, I wasn't really in a position to refuse him.
How did
Come
he
on,
say?
Imagine. This is the guy. His name's on the sticks. I used to play throughout my childhood. Standard, Chuckles. We had 2 sticks, Sakic and Lidstrom. Lidstrom for defense and Sakic for forwards. So look, I mean, I played under like number 43 my whole life since I was a kid. That number has a meaning for me. I was born on March 4th. There's another specific thing tied to it, but I unfortunately don't really want to talk about it. I have this tattoo, see, like a crest with sticks, something I've been drawing for quite a while. It's something meaningful to me beyond just 43. There's more to it. There's a small number 1 in there.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, so it's actually 13 actually fits too, so to speak. And, you know, Valeri Nichushkin wore number 13, and he said, listen, we won the cup with that number. Plus, we're namesakes. Valeri and Valeri. He drew an analogy that said it would be a good idea to try it. I really wasn't in a position to refuse because, again, Dallas had bought me out. And initially, everything seemed to be going well. You know, it looked promising because I really wanted to live there, and a lot of these teams were interested. But then, one by one, they started saying, man, we'll wait until the end of the year scouting. One team after another, nonstop. It was intense. At some point in August, there was only like 3 teams left. It was Detroit, Colorado, and another one. I really don't want to go to Detroit. You know what that city's like? But now, it's slowly getting better, still. Honestly, I've been there a few times. I really didn't like it much. Not too convincing for me. For me, Colorado seemed more promising. And there was a third club, but I forgot which one. And I sort of wanted to go there too. But everyone kept saying, we're waiting for you. By September, I had missed training camp because Jill Sakic only called me at the very last minute after those other teams had already passed on me. I was really scared at that point, thinking, well, I guess I had to go back to Russia. But Joe called, and then they said they were willing to give me a chance on the smallest contract. He didn't demand that I actually wear the number 13, but, you know, he suggested it. I thought it was a good idea and worth a try. You see, some people even call me Lucky 13, so it worked out well. The number 13 is actually quite nice, and it was cool how it would just fit me. Back in my youth hockey school, I had the option of the number 13, and when we played on the national team, that U16 or U18, the numbers only went up to 30. You know, when we played against Canadians, they had numbers like 99, 97, 99, 98, or 77, and some really cool numbers. Meanwhile, we had to put on 25, 24, 23, 16, 12. You know, the bigger the number gets, usually a bit more interesting. I don't know, but back then, they only gave big numbers, you know. And in a way, it was motivating. It was like getting called for the senior national team. I remember thinking, man, I really want to wear 43 for the national team, you know. And every time I go to the national team training camp, there would always be random numbers given to me. I played number 17, 15. I played under 27 a lot. Actually, 27 is a number that I actually played pretty good about. Also played under number 15 when we won bronze in the UFA. Every now and then, the number 13 would come up. It was always being offered to me. And I kind of, you know, stayed away from it a bit because it's seen as unlucky. That was us, and, you know. But then I thought, let's take a chance. And it worked out just fine.
Did you ever talk about it with Sakic afterwards? Like, did he say, Valera, my advice worked?
I don't think he even remembers. Honestly, he's such a great guy. Really easygoing. He loves to spend a lot of time with the team. He's always in, like, this zen-like state, super relaxed. Like, well, obviously the guy had an insane career. He really loves hockey and loves to joke around too. He's such a great guy. Every time I see him, I smile warmly because I know he's gonna crack a joke or say something funny.
It's been a long time coming. They ain't covering my cloth, they tugging. Putting up numbers, 99 problems, and I'm still kept it 100. Yeah.
Considering the recent events, some people are saying that Chelyabinsk hockey players are a bit reckless.
No, of course not. First of all, everyone's a bit reckless in their own way, but in a good way.
But, you know, Kuzi often talks about his tough childhood on these shows, about his friends who were hooligans, drug addicts, some of whom became alcoholics. He talks about how he would collect bottles to make ends meet. It feels like the issue with Chelyabinsk guys is that things are really tough during their childhood. How is it for you?
Well, for me, it's the opposite. In some situations, I had been a softer person, less demanding of myself. Might have been able to avoid certain problems, I believe. I didn't have any friends who were drug addicts or alcoholics growing up. I grew up in a good neighborhood and so on. Honestly, I don't fully know what this current state is, but I can say that this is what I really hope everything turns out well for him in the end. And I think he knows that he can always call me if anything comes up, you know. I will always respond because, you know, he's a person I really respect. He was always an example to me in school, you know. Growing up, I know how much effort he put into becoming who he is. It's just insane, you know. He didn't really leave the ice. He always was skating. People forgot how much he's been giving up to hockey now, you know. And of course, there are a lot of haters. The guy might have slipped up somewhere, made a small mistake, but at the same time, look at everything he's done for hockey, especially Russian hockey. At least for Chelyabinsk, not one, not even close, has done what he has. No one, because he's always been an example for many. And how he opened up as a person and so on, for me too. When I was coming up with Tractor, I'll never forget. They started bringing me up. I played a couple of games and gave an interview. He praised me and so on. They gave me so much confidence. So God bless him, and honestly, I'm not even worried that things work out for him. Because he's a strong guy, very strong. He's easily come out of any difficult situation and he'll be just fine, I'm sure of it. He always finishes strong.